Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to replace your stock flush mount rod holders on your kayak to a surface mount rod holder setup. That being said, let's go ahead and get started. This is the original rod holder that I'm going to be replacing. It's very difficult to reach when I'm seated in the kayak. So what I decided to do is I'm just going to remove those 3 screws, pop out the rod holder, and then trace the face of it so I will have a template and then make the holes, and that way I can install the cover plate. This is the replacement rod holder I'm going to be using in this project. And I chose this one because it looks very similar to the stock rod holder that's already there, so it should fit the form very well of the kayak. And you can see it's got the rail blaza pattern in here, but it's actually just a generic one, and I'll put a link in the narrative section for this part. But you can use any type of surface mounted rod holder that works for you. This is a template I made from the original rod holder so I could size it up with the new rod holder that I wanted to use. And the holes just don't line up perfectly, so I'm going to put the rod holder I want to use on top of the hole and see how that works. I wanted to show you the first cutout of the plate that I made, and as you can see here, I've got all my points marked. These are I'm going to drill 2 new holes to install it, and then I'm going to use the existing 1 hole here. And this center hole here is going to be, because of the way this rod holder is set up, for this circular section here, which is about 1 1/8 inches, so I'll drill that out so it's going to pop right in. But what I also did on this is, after I cut it out, I used a little flame treatment with a lighter on the edge. It kind of cleans it up and brings the color back, and I'll include a video link for that project in the narrative section. After a few trials and errors, I think I came up with a cover plate that's going to work. This is the original template I made for the plate, and these are the screw holes that are already there in the kayak. And when I transferred them over to this piece here, I ran into interference with these 2 lower holes that were drilled here. Now these are ones I drilled in a different position, because when I add this to it, this ended up covering up the holes that go to the kayak hull itself. So I had to drill new holes, like I showed you. These 3 are going to go into the hull, and then this, using these here, will be attached to the top of the cover plate. And I will be able to use this 1 hole that's already there, and then once I drill the new holes and then attach this to the top, everything should fit fine. This should be the final adapter cap for this project. What I've done here is I'm going to utilize this existing hole in the kayak, and these are the 2 new mount holes that I'm going to drill, and they are chamfered or countersunk, so these 1/4 by 20s will sit flat in there, and that will allow for the new rod holder just to snap on top like that. And then I've also drilled out 2 other holes here that I'm going to, once I put this on the kayak and have it mounted, I'll drill these holes through material if I have to. It might clear, I'm not sure yet. And then I will use other screws in there to attach it. Now once I install the plate along with my new rod holder, I'm going to use bolts instead of the screws that are currently being used with the stock model. and you can gain access to the inside of the hull by just removing this hatch cover here, and then there's a bag inside, and once you lift that out, you'll be able to get in there and install bolts. Okay, I removed the rod holder, and there's the 3 screws going over. This is what's left underneath. It's got a little bit of a gasket in there, and then it's got the center hole drilled out for the rod holder to drop into. It's kind of a rough cut, and then there's 3 holes for the installation of the rod holder. So I'm going to lay the new rod holder over this and see how it lines up. Okay, don't mind the shaking. It's because my kayak is on a sling and I'm also holding this by hand. Now I've drilled in my new holes here, and you might run into a problem with the stock holes here. There's a little portion of the backside of the bolt that's molded into the hull itself that might block your access to using a nut with a washer. So I'm just going to get in here and cut it using a utility knife to give me the room I need. This is the finished project. It was a little more difficult than I thought it would be due to the interior part of the hull with the molded screw areas used to attach the original rod holder. But once I worked around that, I was able to install this, and it's in there actually more secure than the stock rod holder was. And I did use 2 different size bolts just because of that interior section of the hull. So if you're going to ask me what size bolts and what I used, it's going to be up to the person that decides to do this project. I've installed the Railblaza rod holders, and this is going to make it much easier to reach them from the seat of my kayak, as well as position them to troll and just use as storage. So that's it. If you have any questions, please leave them for me in the comments. Thank you.